Hi, I'm Gina Ventola, Practice Manager for Ventola Law. One of the best parts of my job is meeting with business owners. However, at times, it can be difficult to meet in person. That's why I started this show, to introduce you to local business owners in our community. Join me on Your Virtual Coffee, a new kind of networking. Hey everyone, welcome to Your Virtual Coffee, the web show that introduces you to great local businesses in the Denver metro area. Today, my guest is Alex Muggenthaler. He is the owner of Front Range Lending. Alex has been in the mortgage loan business since 2001. He's dedicated to providing the best value and services to his client. He and his team have had almost 100 years of combined experience. He's developed great relationships with business leaders and politicians in the Denver metro area, the state of Colorado, and across the country. And with that, Alex, welcome to my show.
Thanks, Gina.
So I kind of want to get to know you a little bit on a personal level, because the reality is we tend to like to do business with people we like, know, and trust. So Alex, are you originally from Colorado? Did you grow up here? If not, where'd you grow up?
Sure. So I grew up in a city called Neenah, Wisconsin, and was there until 1999. And then I moved to Chicago for just a little bit before moving to Denver here in 1999. So grew up in Wisconsin.
So what do you like to do for fun?
Live music, live sports. I'm big into like rock and roll, football, both college and professional. I'm also an avid fan of Formula One racing, which is more of an international racing sport rather than local markets. I do study the stock market, which is a fun hobby for me. And then ultimately, I like to spend time with my family. So I've got a couple of boys and my wife. So we do a lot of things outdoors, indoors. We play board games quite a bit. We do non-screen time stuff quite a bit as a family. And then we get outside and hike, fish, bike, etc. Ski.
I like your phrase non-screen time type activities. That's very interesting. I like that.
Thank you. We do watch movies. Don't get me wrong. We love movies too, but
right.
Try to do that later.
So you mentioned a couple of things I wanted to ask you about. You mentioned football. So I'm assuming you're a Bronco fan. Is that correct? When it comes to professional?
No. They're my AFC team. This is funny because we're recording this, but so I have an AFC team and then I have an NFC team, which are the Green Bay Packers.
Interesting. So, well, that would make sense. Now, what about college?
Wisconsin Badgers.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Yep.
So jumping forward to you becoming a mortgage broker, what is it about being that mortgage broker that intrigues you, that gets you up out of bed each day?
Sure. So after almost 20 years of doing it, I thought about this before we were talking today, and there's never once, ever, hundreds, couple thousand loans later that I haven't had the same one twice, ever. And so that's exciting. That's the treasure hunt, as I like to call it. You're always turning up stones to see if you might find something, or turning over a stone to see what we need to do next, or whatever that looks like. So the other thing is the banking industry is always changing. And because of that, that's always exciting. It's not always the best thing or, initially, but, change is usually good in the end. So, staying on top of my game, being a student of the game and mastering my craft is something that intrigues me or, excites me about what I do.
So with that being said, when you're working with people, especially business owners, how do you work with them, within the parameters of what you do?
Mm-hmm. So like myself, because I am the small business owner, so I do own front range lending. So I do get it. I have the empathy. So when I go to do a home purchase or refinance, I'm under the same, we'll call it scrutiny, or, lack of a better word, that all the self-employed people are. So I get it. I've done it several times. Um, and it just creates even more pieces of the puzzle for myself and my team to create the positive image of the client or clients, so that the underwriter approves the loan. So um, it, it's not that much more difficult now. It used to be, well, it used to be a lot easier because the mortgage industry was a lot less um, regulated than it is now. So that, in my mind, a lot of people thought that that was a bad thing. But in my mind, because that square, that circle got smaller for you to fit into, that just lessened what we had to know. So it's not a bad thing. It's just, how do you get your client on target in order to fit into that space in order to qualify for a mortgage? And that's part of the other challenge. So the other thing with working with business owners that I've done in the past is if they own like some kind of a company where I can come in as basically a benefit to the employees or an asset, is I'll come in and do like a seminar. Just, maybe it's a first-time homebuyer class for that specific company, or it's a refinance seminar, or a little bit of both. I've done like kind of a hybrid. So when I work with these business owners or somebody that's high enough up in the company that says, hey, we really like you, we want to promote you, can you help us? The answer is, of course I can. In fact, I'd love to, because that way I get multiple exposure at once instead of the one-on-one referrals. It helps quite a bit. Does that make
That's
sense?
Yeah, and that's actually interesting you bring that up, because it sounds like not only do you add value to, let's say, a business owner, but you could add value to their employees by providing seminars and webinars or what have you, to give more information so that people can make right decisions versus
That's right.
having kind of been bombarded with percentages.
Mhm.
Now, going into that, there's a lot of people who are in the mortgage business, whether we hear them on TV or on the radio. And my question to you is, what makes front range lending special or different from all the noise that we hear out there?
Right. So one thing I just want to say is, as of late, the rates have gotten, everybody shops rates, okay, or everybody thinks that they're shopping rates and things like that. They're flat for the most part. I mean, you're talking within an eighth to maybe a 1/4%, pretty much across the board for most loans. So with that said, if somebody's selling rate, they're kind of missing the boat, because that's not what you should be selling, because it's not going to be that much different. So my approach is, I come from like a family perspective. So it depends on the age of the client. So if they're, in their, between 40 and 50 or so, 35 to 55, I would treat them like a brother or a sister, or a brother-in-law and a sister-in-law, if there's a couple, so on and so forth. And so I come at and I tell them this out loud. I say, I want you to know I'm going to be wearing two hats today. One is my mortgage hat, and the other one is the family hat. And when I switch those hats, I stop the conversation and say, okay, I'm going to put on my, my brother hat here, so that you understand I'm coming from my heart, not from a business perspective. Because in the lending business, it's very black and white. There's not a lot of gray to speak of. So that gray has to come from the heart and from wisdom and from, past experience. So that's my approach. And I get comments and compliments about using that approach, because it brings down the walls of people. Even if it's a referral of somebody that I've known for years and years, there's still that level of, we still have to earn trust, right? And build some rapport and things like that. So I try to build a solid foundation of trust and rapport with each client or with each group of clients. So, and that just comes from the family approach. The numbers part of it's pretty flat. It's pretty normal. Somebody might have the deal of the day sometime, but realistically, it's not that far off from what anybody else can offer.
It sounds like that personal connection that you make with your clients is really important to you. Would you say that's kind of a big factor for you in
It
what
is.
makes you do what you do?
It is, yeah, because yeah, originally I wanted to be a doctor. When I started college, I thought I was pre-med at Madison, and I thought I was going to be a doctor. So that personal touch and fix things, right, as a doctor, heal things. So to me, the mortgage business is similar to that because I'm taking it's not necessarily a problem, but it's something that they want and they need an end result for it, and I can provide that. So, banking and mortgages aren't that exciting. Most of the time, they're pretty stressful. So we try and make it as light as possible. When I say we, I'm talking about my team and I. Throughout the process, we try to hit, road bumps or speed bumps. Every single loan has one. If somebody says that there's not, they're missing the picture, or they're not really looking at the entire from start to finish. There was a road bump in there every single time there is. And as long as you have a professional, it's a lot less. The speed bump with us might be like this, it might be like that with somebody else, etc. So yeah, but the personal touch, that's a big deal. Want to make sure they feel like family.
Now, Alex, let's talk about power partners. And actually, first, before we get into that, for our audience, power partners are those businesses that kind of complement our own, or they're a business that targets your ideal client, but is not your competition, such as a hairdresser and maybe a personal trainer. They both target people who like to look good, but they don't compete with each other. They actually help each other and could potentially send referrals back and forth. So with that incredibly long explanation, Alex, who is your ideal client?
So, well, my ideal client is any couple or group of people, right? Because I work with investors too, so that's why I have to be careful. If it's not just one person, it's not just a couple, but sometimes it's more than, might be an LLC. Any group that's willing to listen, to follow, and to adhere to the guidance and the flow of the process that I'm sharing with them to follow, and ultimately just trust that we know what we're doing and just move forward with us, because we've been through this before many times. And so that's number one. That's a great client for us. It doesn't matter if they're self-employed. It doesn't matter if they're W-2'd. It doesn't matter if it's an asset-based lending, or they're retired. Those are all different things that we can do. And so, ideally it is easier, but it doesn't matter if they're W-2'd, they're gainfully employed. That's the way the underwriters classify it, by the way. That's not me saying that. I'm happy to work with self-employed individuals. And then also, if they have a credit blemish, or some kind of a challenge, that maybe they've had a bankruptcy or foreclosure in the past, there's all sorts of different timing issues that you have to be aware of, which we are, in order for them to move forward. Another thing that's something that's relevant is this forbearance. Is a newer term within the mortgage business, which people have to pay attention to as well. So all those different factors are fine. As far as great credit, good credit, or bad credit, we're happy to take a look at everybody's situation, give them a road. If the answer is no, what we're not going to do is say no, see you later. That's a typical, and that's where the banking mortgage business in particular gets a black eye. If we say no, I tell them how to get to the yes. I create that roadmap for them, so that when they're ready to go, hopefully Front Range Lending is who they're going to pick, because I've just helped them, for months, maybe several months, maybe a year or two, depending on what the credit issue is typically, or the income issue is, or whatever it is that we have to overcome, or the savings for the down payment. We give them that roadmap. So I hope that makes sense for the ideal client.
It does. So obviously, real estate agents are a good power partner for you because you can refer back and forth. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So real estate agents are the the number one and probably most obvious, right? Just in repeat clients in their
And then
referrals.
that kind of throws into, I mean, you mentioned like LLCs. So financial planners could be um, a good power partner, whether it's an individual or for an investment. Is that correct?
Yeah, so financial planners really have the same, besides real estate agents, those are the two biggest referral partners that I have in my business. Besides networking and repeat clients, those are the four pillars I have.
Okay.
So yeah, financial planners, they're working with or estate planners, right? Whatever term you want to use. Some people still say stockbrokers, but if they're helping them with their financial future and planning ahead, that's what I'm talking about here, whether they're at CFA or not. So they can give me information on the client to see if a refinance, for example, would make the most sense. Say they're going to go from a 30-year term to a 15-year term because they want to retire and they want their mortgage paid off because that's one of their goals. That's definitely something I can help with. On the flip side, if they're buying investment properties, it's depending on what the situation is, they might just do a 30-year fixed instead of a 15-year fixed because it's an investment property and somebody's actually paying their mortgage for them. Now that's a school of thought. I don't want to get too deep into this, but that's one of the reasons that financial planners are a great power partner for me.
I'm also thinking family law attorneys
Yeah.
would be a pretty good source for you because they tend to focus on, if there are assets to distribute in a settlement agreement, usually the house, either one keeps it and one sells it, or they need to sell it, or they need to refinance it so that one of them can stay there, because you don't generally want both names to remain on the mortgage, correct?
Right. I mean, yes, most people, if they're separating or getting a divorce, right, basically, or they're breaking up the business partnership, right, could be that too. They typically, people don't want to be on each other's credit report for a number of reasons, but one can take down the other, because if one's not paying the mortgage or their car payment or whatever it looks like, they'll actually affect, if it's a joint account, they'll affect the other person because they're on the same loan, whether it's a mortgage or otherwise. So yeah, that's why working with family law attorneys, if there's needs to be a distribution or a liquidation and a distribution of assets, I help people pay off, like they'll do a refinance to get them cash out, pay off cars, credit cards, whatever debt they have, student loans, and then
Pay
one of
off
the
the
spouses.
spouse if they need to.
Yep, pay off that. If they have an equity distribution, within the home itself. Yeah, so all of those things. That's why we can work with the family law attorneys, just because it's easier to do that, especially if somebody wants to stay in the home. If they don't, then they just sell the house and distribute accordingly, which has nothing to do with a mortgage. But on
Right.
that side, if they're buying something, I can still help them pre-qualify for what is the intended or expected assets, so they can use whatever they're getting as a down payment for their next property.
So Alex, you've provided a lot of information, but obviously there's much more to what you do. If people have questions, what is the best way for them to reach out to you?
So a good old-fashioned phone call. So that's something that, or face-to-face meeting is something that I'm very much into. The other thing is that realistically, Zoom meetings like we're doing right now they're fantastic. I understand there's been some discussion on the safety of them or things like that, but if this is just a phone conversation and we can actually see each other now as a video call, it's even better. There's not a lot of sensitive information that would be exchanged, etc. So that's the best way for me so when I get a referral, I ask for the people's contact information, then I call them. It's always great if somebody says, hey, I gave somebody your information, but typically I don't hear that from them. So it's best for me to receive their contact information, because I will be proactive to contact the prospective client. So phone numbers, email addresses, obviously texting, but good old-fashioned face-to-face or voice-to-voice for sure is my thing, and I'm sticking to it. I do have a Facebook page. It's a Facebook page that I have because I know I should. I also have a frontrangelending.com is my website. It's got a whole bunch of information on there. I let a company do all that stuff for me, and that's the reason I have that is really for compliance. Because again, I do business by referral. So I'm not doing any kind of SEO or any super duper stuff to my website to get clients into me, because I want them to come to me more organically, actually all organically. I want people to call me up and say, or email or whatever it is and say, hey, I've got a person for you that I think you should talk to. That's how I do business. And that allows me to take a lot more time and ultimately do that family approach with each client, because it's easier because I'm not chasing leads.
Well, thank you, Alex. I think that if anyone out there watching this, if you have mortgage needs, give Alex a call. We'll include a slide on this that'll have Alex's picture and it'll have all his contact information. So you can just call him, whether it be a Zoom or on the phone, and just have a conversation with him. Alex, any last thoughts?
So yeah, just want to reiterate, our approach is really conservative. It's safe. It's well planned, and it's from an underwriter's perspective as far as the mortgage is concerned. So there shouldn't be as many hiccups or road bumps along the way. And all of our decisions come from the heart. And if they need to be, then obviously they're going to come from your brain too, right? Which is, if this is a make sense deal or not, things like that. And be assured that we're not shoehorning people into homeownership. If it doesn't make sense for them, we're happy to say no and tell them why no was said, and then lead them on to the why you can get one later or a mortgage. If that makes sense.
I like that. You kind of provide a path. Maybe it's a no right now, but it's not a no forever. And here's how to get to a potential yes. I like that.
Okay.
Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to our episode with the wonderful Alex Muggenthaler. If you have questions on your mortgage, if you have questions about all the terms they throw at you, maybe you've heard something in the news, contact Alex. We'll include a slide here so that you can reach out to him directly. He loves phone calls. Thanks for tuning in. And business owners, let's have a conversation. Have a great day.
Thanks, Gina.
Your virtual coffee is sponsored by Ventola Law. Ventola Law, mediation and legal representation at an expert level. You can find them at ventolalaw.com. Thanks for joining me today. For more information on your virtual coffee, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and wait for it, our website at yourvirtualcoffee.com. Thanks again for watching, and have an incredible day.